We were told not to be naughty. Didn't quite work out that.
David Arny Arnfield, one of those guys that opposition clubs love to hate. Port Adelaide fans loved him as a runner and fitness coach from the 1980s to 2009. He was very much a character in the sample in the AFL. We'll find out the do's and don'ts of a good sledge and what it was like being the runner under some of Port Adelaide's famous coaches, including Jack Cahill and Choco Williams. This plus much more on Legends with Bevo.
Hi, I'm David Arnfield, and it's great to be on Legends with Bevo.
Welcome to Legends with Bevo, thanks to Anytime Fitness Glenelg.
David Arny Arnfield, great to have you on Legends with Bevo for a chat. As I mentioned before, you've been involved with the Port Adelaide Football Club way back since the 1980s, and then you finished up there in 2009, moved up to Queensland, which we'll get to in a moment, and then you're back now at your beloved footy club again, doing some great things with leading teams. Mate, talk to us how it all began and, you know, what it was like to be involved with the footy club that you grew up barracking for.
Well, it's a dream come true, Bevo. I grew up across the road. Family home was in 7th Avenue, which is right across the road from Albert and Oval. So my earliest childhood memory was going to the football. Grandma would go and get me at half-time. I was too small to go to the whole game. So she'd come get me at half-time and I'd watch the second half and jump on the field after the game. And, it's always been in my DNA. So to get the opportunity to actually to work for the football club was just a dream come true. And I often say to people, I was just in the right place at the right time.
Absolute dream it must have been. Talk to us through the ups and downs of, you know, being involved with this great footy club that I happen to barrack for as well. So I know all about you being one of our favourite runners.
Look, I don't know where that actually came from. Well, I've always been a competitive beast, growing up with 4 older brothers, going to Ross Trevor, which is a private school that was always hell-bent on being successful, and then going from that environment to the Port Adelaide Football Club. I suppose that's where my competitive nature came in. I just love to win. I love to win in anything I do, and that's certainly the culture of the Port Adelaide Football Club. So it was just kind of hand in glove. I probably crossed the line a couple of times, maybe, but it was all done to, you know, everything was done to try and get an advantage, to try and get the most out of our guys as players, and if back in the day, you could get away with, let's say, a little bit more than what you could do now. Let's just say it like that. So it was a little bit of gamesmanship. It was a little bit of competitive advantage. If you knew that, you know, someone might react in a certain way by saying something to them, then you did it. It was all, it was all above board. There wasn't anything bad. It was just a bit of fun, really.
And your ups and downs being involved with the Port Adelaide Football Club for so long? Oh,
look, I think you don't get the adrenaline rush being outside of an environment like that, like you do in any other environment. There's massive ups when you win, so competitive, and that's coupled with, you know, the disappointments when you don't win, especially when the AFL came in, and well, even prior to that, I was going to say when we went full time, but even prior to that, you know, I think one of the advantages of being involved in Port Adelaide, because they were so successful, they knew what it took to be successful, and they knew what it was like not to be, and they'd much prefer to be successful than not. So they were, you know, I was involved with a cohort of coaches and players and administrators that were just incredibly driven by success, and they knew what had to be done to be successful. We pushed them pretty hard as the fitness coach. You know, we worked hard, but they were a great bunch of blokes, and they had. I don't think we could honestly say we were those 80s, 90s leading up into the AFL. We didn't always have the best team in terms of skill, but they had an unbelievable belief in their own ability and their ability to be successful, and that got us over the line a number of times. And Jack was the master in terms of giving him that belief.
And were there any players where you're a bit sort of fearful of, to give you a message to? Because obviously there's been some tough nuts playing at the Port Adelaide Magpies and the Power over the years.
Golden rule of sledging, Bevo, is to be on the move. You know, you can't be standing face to face with someone. Normally, you've got to be in front. You can't be behind. So there's a what we call a couple of rules of engagement. There were back there anyway. But you pick your mark. Like you knew who might you might get a reaction from and who you didn't want to go. You don't want to rattle, some blokes' cages. They would just make them more determined. So over the years, you'd know who you could extract a reaction from, and you kind of work on those.
What about guys like Dave Granger? He would have been pretty scary to go up to him and give a message to, wouldn't he?
I remember the first time I met Granger was on a camp. We were down at Victor Harbour, so we used to go down to Mount Brecon pre-season camps. And I wasn't the fitness. I was second. I was the assistant coach to Ken Wally, and Russell was the coach. And we had a curfew at midnight. So basically, this kind of carried on in all the camps we used to do pre-AFL days. Friday night we'd train real hard. Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon was tough. It was, invariably, well, not invariably, it was always in January, so it was hot down at Victor Harbour. But we would let them go out Saturday night. We'd go to the pub as a group, knowing that at 6 o'clock on Sunday morning we were back into it. And we had a curfew at midnight. So I remember, again, it was my first year there, and Ken Wally and I were out the front. It was 5 to 12. Players all had to be back by midnight. We had a clipboard and we're ticking names off. There were 2 blokes not there at 5 to 12. Ken said to me, look, I'm going to bed. I want you to stay here and make sure these guys get in. I thought, the 2 names, Bomber Clifford, David Granger.
Oh, no.
At 2 minutes to 12, I saw this car coming up. If you remember Mount Brecon, there's a big long driveway that comes up. This car came up, car pulls up, 2 back doors open, Bomber gets out one side, Granger gets out the other side. And it's 1 minute to midnight. I'm there. Thank God, no worries. So they walk the front door into their rooms, and I noticed the car didn't move, the one that dropped them off. I thought, it's a bit strange. Anyway, I shut the doors, looked out the window again just to check lights were all off, and I saw Grange come around the back, get in the back door, off he went. So what am I going to do? Anyway, next morning, Russell comes up, knowing that Ken and I checked them. Everyone get in? Yeah. What do you mean? I had this look on my face. Did everyone get in? I said, well, everyone got in, but not everyone stayed in. Who was it? Anyway, so Grange come here, and I'm how old was I? I was 19, I reckon. There's Dave Granger, who this bloke reckons you came in at 1 minute 12 and went out at 1 minute past. And I'm there, Russell, you just throwing me under the bus here. Grange looked at me, looked at Russell, yep. So penalty. So we're at Mount Brecon, which is right up the hill in Victor Harbour. The penalty was to run around into Victor, over Granite Island, around Granite Island, and come back. That was going to be the penalty if you missed curfew. So there's only one person who missed curfew. That was Grange. So Russell was right, Arnie, take him for a run. I'm running with Dave Granger over the causeway at Victor. I thought he's just going to pick me up and throw me in. Anyway, to his credit, we talked the whole way. He didn't hold it against me. Said, I just want to go out and have a few more drinks. So it was good as gold. But I'm telling you, I've never been so petrified in all my life.
It's funny you mentioned that because you're a little fella and you're playing, obviously not playing, but when you're doing the AFL and the SANFL running, there's some big units out there, and but you weren't afraid to give it to some of these guys. But was there ever a time where you thought, oh, gee, maybe I shouldn't be giving it to some of these boys because I might cop it?
I remember we played St Kilda at Footy Park, so we obviously got in, and I didn't really, to be honest, I didn't know who this guy was. Anyway, Barry Hall was playing for St Kilda.
Oh, no.
And carrying on like he does normally. And I said a couple of things to him. And Adam Kingsley, who was playing for us, came from Victoria, and so he was on the interchange bench. So again, rotation, whatever, I said something to Barry, run off, and we're both sitting down. He looked at me and said, do you know who that guy is? And I'm there, who? He said, that big dude with the blonde hair that you just gave it to. Do you know who he is? I'm there, no. He said, mate, his name's Barry Hall. He's a Golden Gloves boxer. Thank you. So again, another one. If you say something to him, you say it from a distance.
Yeah,
long distance. I remember we were playing at the SCG. So Lockett Plugger's playing for Sydney, and Jack's coaching. Again, long story short, the strategy around Plugger was you either stop the ball out of the midfield, so it obviously doesn't get delivered to him on a plate, or you put people in front of where he's going to lead to. So you just you got to go out with some kind of strategy. So we went out with a strategy of making sure that midfield didn't allow their opposition players to get easy passage of the ball and kick it to Plugger. I think it was halfway through the second quarter, and I think Plugger had kicked 5 at that stage. So the phone goes off. It's Jack. Yep. You know where to stand, don't you? I'm there, what? Plugger, 45 degree. You know where to stand, don't you? I'm there, what? Again, expletive. I won't say some of the language that Jack used to use is quite colourful. And words to the effect, what are your ears painted on? Go and stand out in front of where he leads to. So I'm there, this is the end of me. So I remember standing out there. We're playing it again. We're playing the SCG. The ball was down in our forward line. And I'm standing there for a good, it doesn't appear like a lot of time, but when you're standing doing nothing, there's no players around you, just standing on one side of the SCG, it becomes a little bit obvious. I reckon I was standing there for about 90 seconds, and I heard this voice behind me. There was only 2 people behind me, Stephen Paxman and Plugger. Everyone else was forward. Ball was at our forward line. I'm standing right on this 45-degree lead where he leads to. And obviously, I know Paco's voice, and he's saying, mate, hey, mate. And it wasn't Paco's voice. It wasn't. So I looked around, it was Plugger. Don't stand there, mate. Don't stand there. And again, 30 yards away from him, I felt pretty tough at that stage. Why not? He said, because you don't want to get reported. Sorry, because I don't want to kill you, and you don't want to get reported. So I thought, that's fair enough. So I ran off. Phone goes straight away. Jack, what? What are you doing? What are you doing? Oh, no, the umpire told me to get off.
Good answer.
Good answer.
Yeah.
So look, it's there were some beasts out there, but yet again, I don't think I ever got. A couple of times there was a few incidences, but yeah, most times I got away with it.
And Chad Corns famously got, I think, a $5,000 fine for giving it to Brent Harvey, and you actually said, "Good one, mate." What was all that about?
He did send me a text after he got reported. I was up in Cairns at the time. I just got this text out of the blue. I didn't know until I found out what it was all about. So I just got reported, blah, blah, blah. So I just sent him a text saying, good on you, mate. Well done.
So he learnt well. He learnt from the best.
Well, yeah. That was a bit of fun. I remember when we first got in the competition. So again, what you could get away with the SNFL was completely different to the AFL. Brian Cunningham was the CEO. So it was the first game we were playing Collingwood, MCG, and Brian called Jack and I into the office on the Tuesday, sat us both down and said, look, what we used to do in the you just don't even think about it. You can't. They'll just slap you with a $10,000 fine, and they'll just suspend you. They'll stop you doing it. And Jack said, yeah, Darnie, don't do anything. As if I would do it. Anyway, so I said, yep, no worries. So again, halfway through the second quarter, Brian Sheehan's the umpire, legendary AFL umpire. Halfway through the second quarter, the phone goes off. We're at the MCG. Jack's go and tell Sheehan, stop cheating. That was one of Jack's classics. He would always send me to umpires. Go and tell him to stop cheating. And the invariable response was, go and tell Jack to F-hop, whatever. That would bit of a laugh. That was it. You get away, no problem. But this one's Brian Sheehan. Go and tell Sheehan to stop cheating. So I've gone out there, again, my first game in the AFL. Jack reckons you're cheating. And this Brian Sheehan, to his credit, just looked at me as if, are you kidding me? Like, are you really telling me that? Go away, mate. Anyway, I went back to Jack. Because Jack would be I love Jack. He would, if he sent a message to a player, to one of our players, for example, and it was, getting into him, and the player smiled or there was no reaction, then he would know that I hadn't given him the message that he wanted to give. I learned that very early on. I would go back and he would say, what did he say? What did the player say? Well, in this case, the phone went off as soon as I sat down. What did he say? He said, yeah, okay. That was it. So, yeah. Anyway, that was a bit of fun. But we were told not to be naughty. Didn't quite work out that.
And in terms of the coaches, Jack, obviously Russell you mentioned before, and also Choco, 3 of the absolute greats of the Port Adelaide Football Club and football in general around Australia. Talk us through the 3 different coaches there, and what their approaches in terms of being coaches and the way they approach towards you. You've touched on Jack a little bit. What about Russell and Choco? Yeah,
look, 3 different people, personalities really. Obviously, Russell was just a legend of the game. I remember as a kid. Those, left-handed, right-handed, 30-yard handballs, his ability just to pick the ball up like it was a under nines footy, and then to be able to work with him. And it wasn't only me; it was just the aura that Russell had with the players, people outside the football club. You know, if you went anywhere socially with Russell, it was just I don't think I've ever met someone or been with someone that had the aura that Russell Ebert and still has, you know, around South Australia. So he was able to. You talk to, you know, Ginevers and the Tylers and the Archies and those guys playing through. They were the same. You know, they were kids standing on the hill watching the great Russell Ebert play, and all of a sudden he's their coach. He just loves the game, an enormous thinker. Probably, to be fair to Russell, you know, Jack was there the first time. There was a lot of retirements from some of the, you know, the Tim Evanses and the Brian Cunninghams and those guys. Although they played a little bit under Russell, but they were going towards the end of their careers. Greg Phillips went to Melbourne, so Russell basically had to rebuild that club, that side again, and he did it really well. You know, history tells us that they brought Jack back in, and Jack had a tremendous amount of success. But they were completely different people. Jack was very much into, you know, making people believe them in themselves, giving them the confidence, making them run on air. You know, it was in games. I can remember games where you could just sense the opposition when you were knowing that Port were going to come back and win, rather than these guys believing it themselves. It was, you know, there was a couple of games against Centrals, one against Norwood. I think we were 20 points down against Norwood going to a preliminary final in '84. It might have. Is that 80? 94 it might have been, where, you know, we weren't going to win the game. We were 20 points down going to time on. I think Rowan Smith kicked the goal, and all of a sudden the momentum started, and you can just see the Norwood going, oh, here we go. And Scotty kicked that goal, you know, from the
boundary line.
Yeah. Jack just had that ability to get the best out of people. He'd go on gut feel. I remember that grand final that we beat the Eagles in. He told me after the game he was going to take Scotty off. I think Scotty kicked 5 or 6 goals in the last quarter in that game.
He did, yeah.
He was going to take him off at 3/4 time. He thought, nah, leave him on. God, good decision.
Good decision, yeah.
He said to me before he wouldn't write a book on coaching because a lot of his stuff was just on gut feel. He just had that ability. He'd pick it, see what was going on, make the right move at the right time. And the blokes, they loved him. And then Choco was, you know, again, completely different personality. Again, he was just the ultimate professional. Just he aimed for perfection in everything he did, everything he touched. He wanted people to be perfect at it, and he had this drive. I've never met a person with that amount of drive in him, in everything he did, in everything he touched. He wanted it to be perfect.
Obviously, he got that from Foss, his dad, as well, and we saw Stephen have success. So it must be that Williams family.
And Jenny, the whole family, yeah, absolutely. I often think how lucky I was to be involved in that football club and having the ability to, you know, to work with people like that, the families, the people that we knew. It's, you know, you're not there forever. You're there for a period of time. I remember when I first started at the footy club in the seniors, a guy called Jim Nitsky, who was a team manager at the time. He was on the board also later on. He said to me, I don't know how long you're going to be here for, son, but just make sure that the place is better when you leave than what it was when you got here. And that's the ethos. That's the philosophy they have at the football club. You're there for a short period of time. What can you do to add value to the football club? So again, you play your role in what you do, and you hope when you leave, it's not up to you to make that decision. It's really up to other people. You hope that you've actually added something to the culture. It's an amazing place. It is an amazing place to be. Being back working at leading teams now and having an involvement directly in helping that culture grow, the whole club culture grow, is great. I love it. I love being back involved in it.
And 2009, you obviously finished up with Port Adelaide and you went to Queensland and spent 10 years over there in Cairns. What were you doing over there, Arnie?
So I left the end of 2009. Again, Port Adelaide's a place where, because it was so entrenched in me, I don't think I moved my postcode. I think I lived across the road, and then I bought a house on the other side of the oval, so I didn't move far. and it being such a part of me, when it was time for me to go, I thought with my partner then, Fiona, let's get out. Her brother lived up in Cairns. We'd been up there lots of times on footy trips and holidays, so I thought let's get out. Let's go and do something else. So I went up there and I was lecturing leadership and management at TAFE up there, and also my involvement with leading teams started at the football club. So I was doing dabbling in a little bit of stuff that they were doing up in Cairns privately. So yeah, it was all around leadership, building cultures, building teams, giving leadership skills to managers.
And now you're involved again with Port Adelaide, which is wonderful. Obviously not actually directly with the club, but as part of leading teams. What are you doing down there?
So I went down to the football club as working for leading teams to gauge their interest in whether they'd be involved with us. Had a meeting with Keith Thomas, explained the program. He'd obviously known about leading teams. I think 16 out of the 18 AFL clubs have had leading teams in them, although 90% of our work's in the corporate area now, but we did start with Ray McLean as a certainly in elite sport. So he'd heard about what we were doing. I went down there, to be honest, trying to leverage some of the sponsors, running a co-badging a high points leadership program with Port Adelaide and leading teams to offer it to sponsors. So I got halfway through talking about what we do and he said, stop. I thought this is going to be a short meeting. I want you to do that with my executive team. So we started what we call a performance improvement program, which is a whole club cultural improvement program. In that executive meeting was Chris Davies, who's the football manager. He rang me a couple of days after and said, do you want to have breakfast? So yes, I'd like you to do this with the coaching team at the footy club, obviously at the footy club, with the coaching team. And I thought, look, that's, I'd love to, but I need to meet with the coach first. He said, no, I've spoken to him. He's on board. I said, thanks, Chris, but I need to talk to Ken because I'd never met him before. So I went upstairs in the football area up in their meeting room. And I remember the first thing he said after we met, he said to me, I've seen this program before. He'd seen it at the Gold Coast. He'd been at Geelong, obviously. We had an input in both of those clubs. He said to me, why does it work in some places and not in others? And it was a pretty easy response. It depends on you. If you buy into this, there's a chance it'll work. If you don't, I guarantee you it won't. I won't even start. And to his credit, and all the people at the football club, coaches, the people we're working with, the whole footy department there, they jumped on. They really engaged in the whole thing. It's around how do you want to be seen as a team? What are we doing now that's counterproductive to that? What around non-negotiables? What do you have to do to be the team we want to be? And it's constantly reviewing their behaviours, what they're doing, and they obviously have a direct impact on. Leadership's all around influence, and they influence a whole lot of people. So, look, I've loved my involvement back at the footy club. It's changed a lot in terms of the number. The thing that blew me away when I first went back there was the amount of people back in the football club. When I was there, we didn't have half the amount of staff. Now, again, tragically and unfortunately, some of those people have lost their jobs because of COVID. But it was good. There were still some faces that I knew 10 years ago, so it was great. It was like coming back home.
It's wonderful to have you involved, and I'm sure the players will appreciate it as well, Arnie. Before I let you go, I'm going to throw you under the bus with a tough one here. You've seen or been involved with the football club for a number of years, and you've seen some absolute legends, not only with the SANFL but with the AFL as well. Who's your top three players from Port Adelaide that you've in your involvement there that you come across?
Bevo. Top three. What, in terms of who I would pick in my team, or who the best, or
the best three? So in the time you've been at Port Adelaide Football Club.
Wow, that is difficult. I can't honestly. I reckon if I said I was lucky enough to be involved in probably with reserves and a couple of night premierships and things like that, over 10, maybe 15 premiership teams, or championship winning teams, apart from obviously the premierships. So there's been so many people. Look, again, no preparation. Greg Phillips will be one for sure.
Yeah.
He's probably the most selfless bloke I've ever seen at that football club. He'd sacrifice his own game for other people. He brought other people into the game. He was just such a dominant figure. When you got a half back line of Abernathy, Phillips, and Leslie, it's not a bad half back line.
Yes.
So he would be one. Scotty Hodges could just turn a game. I've never seen a bloke who can take pack marks and kick the ball as long and as straight, even now, is what he could do. And then, wow, in the AFL, Gavin, Treaders. I used to love the way Matty Primus played. I would love Matty to play in that premiership team. He deserved it. So it's that is a tough question.
No, you've done very, very well. I just wanted to
I
put
didn't
you
mention Tim Ginniver, so I just want to make that. I want to put that on record. He wasn't in my top 3 in case he listens to this.
No, you've done very well, Arnie. Oh, mate, thank you so much for coming on for a chat on Legends with Bevo. I really enjoyed it. Well done to you for being involved with the footy club for so long. Everything you've done there as the runner and fitness coach, and great to have you back now as leading teams. I'm sure it's going to be exciting times ahead for the Port Adelaide Football Club.
Go on, you, mate. Pleasure to be here.
PodBooth. Sounds so good.